should every American have a week or two worth of supplies just in case something like that happened?
I believe China is a threat. I believe their actions are nefarious. I believe they want to displace the United States of America as a global leader.
Are we under any sort of a nuclear threat right now? All right, welcome back to the Soaak podcast. Glad you guys could be with us today. I had a previous interview with Michael Minihan, 4-star retired general, U.S. Air Force, and it was amazing. There was so many parenting things that we learned. I'd ask him about his upbringing and kind of what made him the man he is today. So please listen to that if you haven't yet. Today he's come back for part 2. We're going to get into more of policy, procedure, some things that when he made it into the Air Force, some of his tours, things like that. This will be a little bit longer, a little bit more in detail, but I think you're going to love it. Michael, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me back. Really appreciate it.
All right. So just to get started, fill everybody in on kind of when you got through the childhood, your upbringing. Yeah. You had a goal to be an Air Force pilot. Bring us up to that point of maybe some of your first mission when you first checked in, had to shave your hair. What did that what did that look like?
Well, I felt like I hit the lottery, graduating from Auburn, having a pilot training slot, and I had to wait a year before I went to pilot training. So I lived in my parents' attic on Langley Air Force Base, worked on a golf course. I was a lifeguard at the on-base pool, right. And I had to wait there for about a year. And it was cool hanging out with mom and dad again, certainly.
Right.
And then, being able to report to Columbus Air Force Base, Mississippi in April of 1990, with this enormous weight on your shoulders, right? It's like, hey, this has been my dream. Can I do it?
Right.
Can I do it?
Right. You're up.
And pilot training is still to this day the hardest academic, physical, mental thing that I've done. It's unforgiving. So you enter the class, and if you fall behind, if you fail check rides, if you fail academic tests, you fall further behind, and you actually are expelled pretty quickly. It's a very high standard, unforgiving pace. But I also learned very early, the academic part is just, we call that admin. You just have to put in the time, study, know your stuff.
Right.
But then it turns out that I could fly.
Right.
And so pretty early I got feedback that I was doing well. And then there's a point where you get confidence that is, not overconfidence, but just enough confidence.
Right.
To not sweat the small stuff, to really work hard, excel in flying, surrounded by great classmates. I had a fantastic class and then a fantastic group of instructor pilots. And I made it a effort of mine when I was the commander of Air Mobility Command at the very end of my career to go back to the pilot training bases and thank the cadres there. And the way I describe it is, you don't just teach people how to fly, you teach people how to love flying. I mean, those are two different things.
Right.
One is essentially a trade. Being a pilot is a trade. But loving flying is a passion.
Right.
And that's what they gave us the capacity to do. So tip of the hat to my instructors at Columbus Air Force Base. Lucky enough to do well enough to get my first pick out of pilot training, which was a C-130. And my first base was Little Rock Air Force Base in Arkansas. I tease the young kids, normally you Google something like that, but I had to go to the library, pull out, you're exactly, pull out an atlas, this thing called an atlas. And then, then an encyclopedia and look it up. And lucky enough to go to Little Rock. And I'll briefly describe the first 3 tours, which gets you 10 years. But, my first squadron, I talk about them as they taught me the nobility of what we do.
Right.
They were the tail end of the Vietnam veterans. It was a squadron with incredibly high standards, well led, well peered, but they were tough.
Right.
Your quality of your life, personally and professionally, was directly proportional to your performance in the cockpit. So if you couldn't run a checklist, if you couldn't talk on the radios, if you couldn't fly the airplane, then nothing else happened for you.
Right.
You had to show up and earn credibility and respect in the cockpit, and then everything else fell in place. So
it was put in the time with a menial task, and if you could do that well, you didn't skip a beat, then that sort of pre-qualified you for being in a cockpit.
You got it. You had to had to do all the work up front. You had to know your procedures. You had to know your ops limits. You had to invest in the planning. You had to you basically had to pass a loyalty test.
Right.
And it was twofold. It was the preparation and then the execution. And there was no quarter.
Yep.
They did not hold back.
I don't want to interrupt you, but there's so many things that this correlates with business, and I'm a business guy.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I'll give somebody things to do, and I'll give them tasks to complete, and they may be menial, and I may not even know if they've done them or not. Like, it won't matter that much to me if they get done. I just want to know that they did them.
Right.
And that they did them in the time they said they would do them in. Because if you can't do those little things, how would I ever trust you with the bigger things?
You're right. And then especially as a pilot, I mean, you're on display. There's no hiding
That's life
from
and
yourself.
Death.
You got it.
Wow.
And so it was the nobility of what we did.
Sure.
After that was about a 4-year assignment. After that, I went to Valdosta, Georgia, joined a squadron, the 52nd. The first squadron was the 61st. The second squadron was the 52nd. And I couched that next 3 years as the discipline of what we do. I worked for a fantastic director of operations and later commander named Mark Fritchie. He's another hero of mine.
Right.
And it was the discipline. I was a scheduler. So when you schedule, you match the mission with skill sets. The airplane I fly, the C-130, has 5 crew members. So you pick a crew or a team that can go fly that mission. You analyze risk. You analyze the weather. You analyze the challenges of the mission. Overlay that with experience, personalities, all the a little bit of science, a little bit of squishiness, a little bit of gut feel.
Right.
And I never once got the order signed for the next day's fly-in through Mark Fritchie on the first try. Never once.
Really?
He was tough.
No matter how good you thought you were,
no.
he would never.
And no matter how much experience I had at it, 3 years later, I'm still bouncing off the door. But Fritchie told me one thing, and we call him Fritchie. I still call him Sir.
Right.
He said, Minnie, I want you to dig into the box and swing the bat as hard as you can every time. I'm going to bean you with the pitch. I'm going to brush you back with the pitch.
Wow.
I'm going to do change-ups and fastballs and knuckleballs and spitters.
Right.
I'm also going to serve you some, fastballs down the middle that you can crank over the park. But no matter how it goes, I need you the next day digging in and swinging the bat.
Really?
The discipline of what we do.
Right.
The next assignment, I went to the 37th at Ramstein, Germany. Well-led, well-peered, well-missioned. A phenomenal squadron. It was in the middle of Bosnia and Kosovo. Some conflicts of years past.
Right.
And again, another poster, life-size poster I have, Colonel Doug Crulin taught me the command. So, the trilogy here, from the nobility to the discipline to the command. And he taught us how it all fit together. He taught us how to lead outside of your lane. He taught us how to integrate with people that make the mission happen, do the mission, the enablers, if you will. And it was just really a PhD over 3 years, in combat environments. And that tenure, that decade was really foundational for me to build upon for the next.
Did you think before that 10 years started, like when you first went in, you shaved your head for the first time and you're ready to go, did you have in your mind somewhere, did you have the intention on becoming a 4-star general? Like, you know what I mean?
Absolutely not. No idea.
Yeah.
And I believe this. You generally make your decisions in a career in 3 to 5 year increments.
Right.
Now the first 7 are easy for me because I have a pilot training commitment. When you sign up for a class that's a year long, that's very expensive. The Air Force makes you sign a contract that says you'll give back 7 years of active duty service.
Right.
So that's what it was when I joined.
Right. You had to do that.
You're right. But the way I counseled young kids, because I get this question quite a bit, is I say, look, I want you to want the next logical step. And for a pilot and an officer, there's 2 sides of our life. As a pilot, I wanted to be the best co-pilot on the planet initially.
Right.
I wanted to be the co-pilot that people requested on their check rides. I wanted to be the co-pilot that the commander wanted to fly with. I want to be the co-pilot that was in the lead aircraft, not the last aircraft, because they knew that I was going to do my co-pilot duties.
Right.
After pilot, I want to be the aircraft commander.
Right.
I want to be the aircraft commander, that gets certified in all the mission sets. I want to be at the front. I want to do the hard missions that the boss picks. Then I want to be the instructor pilot and then the evaluator pilot. Always want the next logical step. And the way you do best to honor the next logical step is you're really good at the step you're in.
Sure.
You're really good at the step you're in.
Work yourself out of a job. Like,
you're right.
He's so good at that they've got to put you somewhere
You got
else.
it.
Yeah.
And then on the officer side, I started out as a scheduler, a pilot scheduler, and then I was a central scheduler, and then I went up to a part of the organization that brings all of the units together in schedules.
Right.
When I was the assistant flight commander, then I wanted to be the flight commander. When I was a flight commander, I wanted to be the assistant director of operations. When I was the director of operations, I wanted to be the commander. So that next logical step always starts with the step that you're in and doing really, really good at it.
Right.
And then.
You finished that 10 years.
Yeah, well, I finished that 10 years with two critical things that I have to mention. Yeah. My first 5 years, I was diagnosed with cancer immediately upon getting to my operational unit, my very first one. So as a lieutenant, I went in for a routine flight physical, and they found a nodule in my neck that turned out to be thyroid cancer. So I did all the things: 2 operations, radiation therapy, and clawed my way back into the cockpit.
Oh my gosh!
And really grounded for the first year solid, and then significant portions of the next 5 years grounded as I got follow-ups and scans and stuff like that. Sure. Another great life-size poster for me is a Dr. Ken Berman, Army medicine, and I'd been punted around in the system. To shorten the story, punted around in the system, and when I called him crying.
Yeah.
One day as a lieutenant, because I was out of options and out of luck, and he said, Minnie, just get here. I got you. I mean, he had no reason. I'm in the Air Force. He's in the Army. I'm in Little Rock, Arkansas. He's in Walter Reed in Washington, D.C. And he just said, get here. And he backed that up. When I got there, I fell into...
How did you know to call him?
There was a vector that I had gotten that he may be somebody that could help, that I had gotten through the medical community.
Got it.
And so anyways, I got to him and he delivered, and it just all got good. And, eventually wound up in being cured.
Wow.
And then the second thing, and this kind of teases your question is, eventually my commitment to the Air Force runs out.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And now you got to make a decision. Do I stay in?
Right.
Or do, what all pilots do is, do I go join the commercial airlines?
Yeah, American Airlines or whoever.
Yep. And I did not know what to do. I mean, this was not an easy decision for me. So I, this is, my wife is an amazing human, an amazing lady. And this grew to be the 2 questions that we asked ourselves at every sentinel point in our careers, which included that first pilot training commitment. She was diagnosed with MS. Certainly my cancer scare, other things, every opportunity we had to get out, we asked ourselves, are we having fun? And is this a healthy place for us? And I realize that if you think about those, they're really just one question. I get that.
Right.
But it turns out it was a healthy place for us and we were having fun, and I waited to the very last day of the very last minute of the last day to make the decision. But that was the 7-year decision. And then guess what? 5 years later, you got to make it again. And 4 years later, you got to make it again. So it starts out with logical steps that we discussed earlier, but it also has to be overlaid with healthy and fun.
Right.
And it turns out that healthy and fun is driven more by the people that you're surrounded by. Right. And we've been blessed to have been surrounded by amazing teams our whole career. Yeah.
Because not everything you got into, probably very few things were actually easy. Yeah. So healthy, fun, but maybe hard.
Yep.
But the healthy fun gets you through the hard and then gets you to the promise or the thing that you were really going for.
Yeah, 2 sides to the coin. I mean, I don't think there's anything worth doing that doesn't have a healthy tension of hard to it.
Right.
At least I've never been in. I've never had the open field to run in, and I mean, always. Real life happens, right? It happens professionally,
right,
and it happens personally. I told you my wife was diagnosed with MS. Her parents suddenly passed away, not at the same time, but we this is a true story. I've told it many times, but on the day we buried her dad, I got a phone call on the way home from the cemetery as we're going back to her mom's house,
right,
and was told I was deploying in 3 days. And so we bury her dad that same day. I go kiss my wife, two, a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and then also a newborn who is only 2 months old, and then left for 120 days. And nobody gets a waiver to real life.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Real life happens.
Right.
And it's everything from the personal issues to the professional issues, and you get paid to navigate them. And I'm going to steal this from a guy named Joe Koenig, who works for a company called WMT. He says, you got to get good at handling bad. You got to get good at handling bad.
Like
right?
that.
And so, that is, you get a skill set and a callus and a robustness to the way you go through challenges, because we all have to do it. And as you know, real life doesn't stop just when you retire and all of a sudden get easy,
right.
as you and I have shared some of the story of my last 14 months.
Right. 100%. Yeah. Speaking of that, and so ultimately you spent 35 years in.
Just about 35 years, yes.
And you just recently retired last year, 4-star General, Pacific Realm.
Yep.
And
10 years in the Pacific, 2 tours in Korea, 2 tours in Indo-PACOM, which is the joint headquarters. Which means they handle all the services, activities in Hawaii, and then also a tour with Pacific Air Forces, which is an Air Force headquarters that works for the joint headquarters. So all in all, about 10 years, and super challenges, but also amazing fun and amazing teams again.
Out of all your deployments and everywhere that you've been, what was your, if there is a favorite?
Yeah.
What was one of your favorites, and then what was one of your hardest?
Yeah. All deployments are both fun and challenging. You can say that I've served a tour in, as we talked about earlier, a tour in Ramstein, Germany. Executing operations for Bosnia and Kosovo.
Right.
Amazing growth opportunities there. Once again with great teams. I'll answer your question though with service supporting operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. There is a I'm a C-130 pilot, so C-130 is a 4-engine propeller driven airplane that feels big if you fly one, but it's relatively small compared to a C-17 and a C-5. But critical missions for America's warfighters. So soldier sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guardsmen and Guardians count on the C-130 to do things, especially in Iraq and Afghanistan. So we were the bus that took people to war and back. We were the moving van that brought in supplies. We were the flying ambulance that did Medevac missions, and then we were routinely the hearse that would start the return of a fallen angel back to the United States. So in that wide array of missions, you see the best and worst of the military experience. When you're carrying, we used to call it 50 and 2, 50 passengers, 2 pilots carrying an Army unit or a Marine unit that had been engaged in heavy combat, and you're bringing them out to go home. I mean, that's the juice.
Wow.
You can feel the excitement and the joy in them. At the same time, when you have somebody wounded or someone that has been killed in action, a flat drape coffin or casket in the back of your airplane, it's heartbreaking and gut wrenching.
Yeah.
So you see, but all of it is has an underlying honor and respect foundation to it that gives righteousness to the mission.
Right.
And then that you get to see that everybody in your unit is dedicated to that respect, and that performance that delivers unwaverable support to the people under fire is pretty cool to watch. And then we've got great servicemen people, both servicemen and servicewomen that get after mission like nobody else, and it's always an honor to watch that. But make no mistake, there's good days and bad days. When it comes to those type of activities.
No matter where you are.
No matter where you are. Now, flying a C-130 in the Caribbean, flying a C-130 in Europe, when no one's shooting at you, that's all good stuff. That's all good stuff.
You can relax.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you were a 4-star commander at AMC.
Right.
And you had a lot of decisions to make.
Right.
Almost all the time. And I want to get into when you left, because how do you turn that switch off?
Yeah.
You know, like I don't want to go there yet, but I'm going to set you up for the next question.
Okay.
While you were there, you had some very difficult decisions to make. We had the threat of China. We had the threat of war. We all of a sudden started getting contacted by preppers that said, man, you better have at least a week or two's worth of supplies in your home. There could be a electromechanical type thing, an electric blast that could wipe out the electric grid, you know, all those things. So I know we don't have time to go through them one at a time, but should Americans be concerned with that? Should every American have a week or two worth of supplies just in case something like that happened? And I know some's classified and you can't talk about that, but unclassified information and just your opinion.
Right.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah. Let me circle back to that in a second. Let me just say the Air Mobility Command is America's strategic airlift, strategic tanking. We do everything from be the ambulance in the sky to be the flying gas tanks, right?
Got it.
And during my tenure there, I came in just after the evacuation of Kabul. So you got to see Air Mobility Command in action as they took out, hundreds of thousands of people and brought them home.
Right.
As soon as that was done, we got into Ukraine. So we started running supplies over for the defense of Ukraine. As soon as that was over, we executed an exercise called Mobility Guardian in the Pacific, which was a large mobility exercise in the theater that matters. As soon as that was over, the Israel-Hamas conflict kicked off, and we went into immediate action on that. Oh, by the way, we retrograded U.S. forces out of Nigeria. Oh, by the way, we supported humanitarian operations in Haiti. So you're 110,000.
Did you ever sleep?
I had, we're going to get to wearables here, I know, but I had 3 wearables telling me how tired I was. But 110,000 people, 1,100 airplanes, all doing phenomenal work. Joint team, total, active duty, guard reserve, civilians. We never say that without mentioning spouses and kiddos.
Of course.
And so, the op tempo was pretty high.
Right.
Okay. Preamble number 2 is I was hired for the job because of my experience in the Pacific.
Got it.
It's the only reason I got the job. 10 years in the Pacific, full appreciation for the North Korea threat, full appreciation for what China represented, and an order from my boss to go faster.
Got it.
So get us ready for a fight in the Pacific.
Right.
And so I came in there, really, I'm not, by no means would I say I'm an expert, but I've got a lot of experience, and we were driving towards the ability to handle a fight against China in the Pacific.
Sure.
So that drove the majority of my lines of operation, if you will, my priorities. But you talked about your business experience earlier. You never get to focus on one thing in real life.
Right.
So we have national leadership saying China, China, China.
Right.
And we've had that consistently across 4 administrations, all the way back to President Obama.
Sure.
President Trump, President Biden, President Trump again have said the Pacific is the priority theater.
Right.
And yet you get distracted by real life.
Yeah.
So you have to handle the Ukraine. You have to handle the Kabul evacuation. You have to handle Niger. You have. Right. I mean, so we don't get paid to juggle 3 bowling pins. Nobody cares about 3 bowling pins.
You just have to handle them all.
Yeah. Well, they might care about a flaming torch, a running chainsaw, and a baby. That's what real life is.
Right.
Enormous priorities that are hard to handle together. And so that's what we really went after. I believe China is a threat. Mm-hmm. And I believe what they say, that they want to reunify Taiwan during our lifetimes. I believe their actions are nefarious. I believe they want to displace the United States of America as a global leader and displace the rules-based order that exists for one that would benefit only themselves. Okay. You have to look no farther than their words and their actions to believe that.
Right.
I can't answer you on whether you should have water or essential supplies, but I do know this: they will attack us in all domains. And if they were to make a very poor decision, they would threaten our electricity grids. They would threaten our critical infrastructure, if you will, the utilities. the services that we require. That would be something that would do, and you routinely see in the news in open source reporting the cyber intrusions, the electronic attacks
cyber
they
attacks.
do, and you could argue that we're already in conflict in that domain. So this nation, this whole of nation, is going to have to get a grip that is an important threat to pay attention to.
Yeah.
So I got a little prepper in me. I'm not saying I'm not saying I would have respect in the prepper world. But at a higher level, above the individual level, we need to take the threat seriously.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of opportunity right now to do that. I think, in fact, I think the opportunity has never been better for us to take this seriously. I'm certain you'll want to follow up a question on that. So it's a real threat. There are people out there thinking about our demise.
Right. But the things that you did in the Pacific and the different trainings that you put on, you were responsible for getting equipment out there.
Right.
That was for a reason. So we've been training for years for something like that to potentially come toward us. So I don't want to say, should people prep because the Air Force can't handle it, because the Air Force can handle it.
Right. The way I describe it is this. Admiral Paparo has a good quote. Admiral Paparo is the current commander of Indo-PACOM, and he says, "As ready as I am, I'll never admit to being ready enough." And I extend that. I extend that a little bit. So as ready as we are, we can always be more ready. As integrated as we are, we can always be more integrated. As agile as we are, we can always be more agile. So this gets back to that coaching that we talked about on our previous podcast.
Right.
The toughest coaches are never satisfied.
Right.
And I mean,
100%.
how many times did even after a sloppy victory, did you have to do wind sprints on the football field after a not so good?
100%.
I mean, those are the coaches that push the team
Always want more.
to achieve the maximum outputs mentally and physically.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm at. As good as we are, we can always be better. And we have some serious things to address because the fight in the Pacific isn't going to look like what happened with Iran last year. It's not going to look like what happened in Venezuela. It's not going to look like the last decades of experience against Iraq and Afghanistan. It's going to look like what our grandpas did in the Pacific. You'll be contested at great distances by a peer adversary that can hurt you really bad. And not only that, they're going to use all the domains. They're going to use the cyber, the information, the air, land, sea, and the space to get after you. So that is an enormous mind shift that our society hasn't had to deal with in a very long time. And again, I express optimism with the alignment now that we can handle that.
Yeah. No, I'm with you 1,000%. Explain what this means, and then explain or let me know your opinion of today President Trump talking about this the golden parachute, or that's not a parachute. It's like a golden dome over the U.S. First, what does that really mean? Is it a real thing? And what do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm not an expert at the Golden Dome, and I'm certainly not part of the conversations. But what he's talking about is integrated air missile defense, and I've got a little bit of experience about that.
Right.
So we have a requirement, and I believe the priority is and should always be defense of the homeland. So the homeland just isn't the continental United States. It extends to Alaska, extends to Hawaii, it extends to our territories in the Pacific and all around the world, is that we've got an obligation to protect Americans. One of the hardest, most expensive things you can ever do in the military is shoot something down that's already been shot at you. And then we've certainly seen with Israel and Hamas and Iran, we've seen that adversaries are using very low-cost technology to inflict, and even in Ukraine, to inflict strategic consequences and damage. So think about the drone attack that Ukraine did on Russia, where they go long range and hit their bomber fleet. Think about the drones that came out of Iran and tried to attack Israel, and then think about how much those cost. $10,000.
Right.
I don't know the exact cost, but that you're shooting them down with $1 million missiles. Okay, the economics.
Right.
Remember, I have a degree in economics.
Yeah.
But my professor did say, just because one has a degree in economics doesn't make one an economist.
Yeah.
I do remember that.
There you go.
But the point is, the cost imbalance there is unsustainable.
Right.
So what Golden Dome will do is get that cost curve on the right side. And then we are overdue, I think, in paying attention to this threat. So I think we are looking at the right things: integrated air missile defense. We need to address the least sophisticated high threat systems that are emerging on the battlefields now. We also need to handle the ones that have already existed, the long range missiles that our adversaries possess, and everything from missiles to rockets to airplanes, and all the things. We need to pay close attention to those and spend this nation's intellect and some of its treasure to protect the homeland. I think that's all good stuff.
Good. Are we under any sort of a nuclear threat right now?
Well, nuclear deterrence exists. So
because that scares everybody. You're
yeah.
talking about nuclear.
Yep.
You're going to be vaporized,
Yep.
one shot, either
Yep.
coast. You hear that growing up. Like,
Yep.
how do you frame that?
Yeah, well, you and I grew up in a time where we practiced nuclear. We had nuclear drills in elementary
Fallouts,
school.
yep.
We hid under the desk.
Yep.
I think I thought a desk was adequate back in the day, that it was gonna help out.
Right.
So there's been no change since we were kids to now.
Yep.
Nuclear deterrence exists. And it's something that we should invest in and pay attention to. The credibility of the U.S. nuclear arsenal is undeniably strong, and the nuclear triad that we possess and the service men and women that execute it are the best that this nation has. And so I don't think that we should be alarmed by anything new right now, but it should also be, as we are appropriately doing, something that we invest in and rehearse and ensure that the deterrence model is strong as ever. And I think that it is.
Sure. So you can sleep at night.
I sleep at night.
Yep. Yeah. That's amazing to hear. So now, from you going through all that, and it's amazing. Like I get tired just listening to it because of the struggles that you went through. Recently, you just went through a few months of things that would knock the normal person out. Can you tell our audience what you've been through just in the last few months?
Yeah. So I've had an interesting transition into the retirement. Taking the uniform off and changing gears. The cool part is all the things I advocated for while I was in uniform, I continue to advocate for.
Sure.
I did not wait to retire to have an opinion. So I'm on record in uniform on things that matter to me, and I've got the privilege to try to make those come true now that I'm out of uniform, just from a different perspective. But having done something for almost 35 years, and all of a sudden the treadmill goes to a different speed on a different incline.
Right.
That's one aspect.
Right.
2 weeks after I retired, a hurricane hit St. Pete, Helene.
Mm-hmm.
We got the surge from Helene. And then 10 days later, Hurricane Milton hit. So kind of went into back-to-back crisis. My mom and dad's house received significant damage. And so we were using FEMA trailers to do our cleanliness actions.
Right.
And as we cleaned up and recovered from those. And I don't at all want to say that what I went through was equivalent to what folks in the Carolinas went through, which
Sure.
was just horrific. The magnitude is not there,
Yeah.
but it was certainly a stressor in the life. Came in Mayish, April, Mayish. I got diagnosed with prostate cancer.
Mm-hmm.
July, had my prostate removed and have been through. I teased that my active duty career started with thyroid cancer, and
Right.
my retirement career starts with
no.
prostate cancer.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, so a phenomenal team. The VA hooked me up, and then Moffitt Cancer Center in Florida really took great care of me. 2 days after my operation, my dad, who has Parkinson's, he has Parkinson's because of his exposure to Agent Orange.
Because he was also in the military.
In Vietnam, yep.
Yep.
Air Force intel officer. He fell, and that started July 12th to November 1st was what, he fell and then passed away on November 1st. So, we were in the crisis mode with my dad. It was kind of interesting visiting your dad who had just fallen, as I've got a catheter and I'm, 3 days out of an operation.
Oh my gosh.
People are like, what's wrong with the Minihans?
Right.
But it just shows you, so the crisis of handling emergency rooms, ICU, normal rooms, and people that have been on the journey with elderly parents know, how the frustrations of getting care, assisted living type stuff was pretty real. And then passing away rather suddenly. So I'm not looking for sympathy on this. I'm just telling you that the 14 months for the Minihans was one that we had to rely on our relationships and love for each other, and respect for the people that we're helping, to have a chance to handle all that, as it just packed up on each other. So, you find, and this is another example of my dad's impact on us. We were more than prepared for that, because of the way he loved us. And the style of his love prepared us for all of this, but it doesn't make it any easier. There's God's hand in a lot of the actions that happened over the last 14 months in a very blessed way.
Expand on that. Expand on when you were coming back from...
the day he passed away, I had landed from a trip to Taiwan, and I'd been up for close to 2 days, and I just said, I'm close to where he was being cared for, and I'll just swing by and have breakfast with him and then go home. And, and I had a normal interaction with him. He appeared to be fine. We interacted for a couple of hours, and then I hopped in the car to go. The plan was to take a shower and pass out for a few hours. Right.
After not sleeping for 2 days.
Yep. Instead, I got a phone call from my mom, who said that he had been rushed to the hospital, and it turns out his, of all the things that were ailing him, it was his heart that even. But I'm convinced that he was holding on for me. And that he picked a time that he knew that my mom would be there, I would be there, my brother and sister could make it from the DC area, and then have us all surrounded by all of us surrounding him during those last precious moments. But I think the overall point is, again, nobody gets a pass to real life, and then you go back to that durability, that robustness, the resiliency that you brought up, which I think is a great word. And then you do the best you can. You get good at handling bad, and during those times, it brings you together. And we really tried to have a celebration of life for my pop. It was a celebration of life, and the majority of the celebration was the skill set that he had given his family, and I think the loudest expression of who he was through his grandkids, because each one of those grandkids on his last day got a phone call from me saying, I'm about to put the phone next to your grandfather's ear, and you're gonna, and they didn't know this was coming, and you're gonna have to say your final goodbye to him.
Wow.
And each one of those kiddos, regardless of age, regardless if they were in college walking through a classroom hallway, I caught them at work, you name all the things that kids are doing, stepped up and knocked it out of the park. Said things to him that most people would wish they could hear from a loved one. So that happens because of him. So,
how amazing.
As I cried.
I didn't know that part of your story. No, I don't know how you couldn't. You said that the day that it came in, that God had a big part of that. My father's a pastor. He went from being at a particular religion to just having a relationship with an unconditional loving God that just loves you because he's God and he's a loving God. Where did that play into all of this? Do you rely on that? Do you not? Where do you stand on some of that?
I do rely on it, but I think I do it in a unique and very personal way. I don't think you can... when you become a father and you look at what your wife has gone through in childbirth, and then that bundle of life that comes in your life, I don't know how anybody can claim to be.
There is no God.
I don't get it.
Me too.
I don't get it.
Me too.
And then we grew up spiritual, but in a unique way. I mean, we celebrated with each other. It was something we talked about. Not necessarily in a church every weekend.
Right. Got it.
But I have found out that the older I get, the more exposed to the real lives and the more maturity of being exposed to real life, that the more reliant I am on a conversation with God.
Yeah.
And it's very personal. Sure. It happens internal more than it happens out loud. But I'm thankful for him each and every day. And it's a big part of my life, and it's growing stronger. But in a unique way. I don't know if the pastor would be happy with me.
Let me tell you, the pastor was not happy with me.
Yeah. But this is a comment that's both spiritual and I think just part of personal growth. I recognize that I'm the target audience when it comes to the gift that Jesus gives us.
Sure.
I am the one that needs redemption. I am the one that needs work. I am the one that's on a journey.
Yep.
I am the one that's always trying to get better and often falls short.
Right.
And whether you're spiritual or not, we have an accountability to ourselves that requires us to learn and not repeat the same mistakes, and to always drive for perfection, even though we know we're never going to be perfect.
Awesome.
And so it's a big part of my life.
Wow, that's I've got what they call chill bumps on your arms.
In Hawaii, they call it chicken skin.
That's exactly what it looks like.
Yeah.
So you made it through all that. 35 years in, you had the difficulties in your transition out, and things that you obviously overcame very well. You can't really find that on-off switch type thing.
Right.
Like I think you're from what I've heard, you're molding your life. You're learning about you every day. I had somebody tell me the other day, he was a very smart person. He said, today's going to be the hardest day. Mm-hmm. He said the next day is going to get a little easier, a little easier, a little easier.
I like that.
For those of you who don't know, it was Mike who told that to me, and you said that you had heard it from somebody else.
Yeah.
But this being the hardest day, where do you see yourself going in the next few days, weeks, months, years?
Right. The first of all is I rely on my wife to be better than me in every way possible. She is. I mean, she's certainly been a fantastic partner, but she's also she is the one that sets me straight when I need it. She is the one that always has the better insight. She's the one that can pull me aside and say, "Hey,
you better watch
this." And she's never been wrong.
Yeah.
So every day's journey begins with a partnership with her.
100%.
And the relationships are tough. And I don't mean that in a bad way.
Right.
I mean it is, if you care about it, you better invest in it.
Sure.
We talked about the presence in my professional life. That same presence needs to exist in your personal life. And it's a decision. I used to talk about presence, energy expenders, when I counseled my team. There's two things. There's two things that expend my energy more than anything. The first is maintaining your cool when your expectations are not met.
Right. And I can relate to that.
Yeah.
And Aaron?
And the second is being present.
Yeah.
Be present.
Right.
That's a decision.
Right.
That's not just something that you're born with and can be present. So can I be present in my professional life when I go from the meeting that talks about scheduling to the meeting that talks about maintenance to the PA interview that I'm going to do, to the person that's in trouble, to the budget discussion, to the talk with my boss, and oh, by the way, that's just noon, and we've got 6 more hours to go. Okay, can I sit at the table and receive the investments that the team has given like it's the only thing on my schedule that day? I'm not worried about what happened before. I'm not anticipating what's happened next. I'm not worried about what's the issues that are happening at home or wherever my mind would tend to wander to. Can you be present?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And then can you, at the end of that 12-hour day, 13-hour day, 14-hour day, go home and bring the juice to the family for the 20% of your day that remains.
Right. Wow.
Can you sit at the table? Can you have a conversation? Can you not bring over the baggage that just frustrated you for the last 12 hours? Can you be present for them? And so I'm not at all saying that I'm perfect at this, but it requires energy. You asked me what time I go to bed. When I was in uniform, I went to bed at 8 o'clock.
Right.
It doesn't mean I fell asleep at 8 o'clock.
Right.
But it was.
But you were up at 4.
Yeah, up crazy early. But 4 o'clock is good. 4 a.m. is awesome. It's awesome for a lot of things. But that energy, it'd be interesting, for people to do an exercise on what expends your energy. And those are the two that I learned about myself.
I know when I first met you at AMC, I went and everybody was waiting for you to walk through. Like all the guys were out. They were talking about different things. And it was like, where's the general? When is he going to be out? When is he going to be out? And you see this guy come out because I'd never met you, and people held you in great regard, great respect. So I knew to expect something good, but I wasn't for sure what. Mm-hmm. I've also traveled the world. I've spoke on big stages, little stages, here and there, all over the globe. And I've met a lot of people, and very few have made an impact on me like you have, and you didn't even know me. So when you stood up there and you gave what the mission was, why you were there, what we should be focusing on, and where you wanted to take it.
Right.
It was like, and I say this with the greatest respect, but it was almost like God had just spoke. Like I know you're not going to accept this, but that's why I'm going to keep talking, so you can't say anything. But the way you came across, and you were positive, but you weren't too salesmanish. You were solid. And when I talked to other people in the industry after speaking with you, I thought, why isn't everybody like Minihan? Why isn't everybody like General Minihan, where you are present, you do understand people, but you can set the record straight. You can put things in context with kindness, like you said, and you can get somebody moved from where they are to where we need to be to accomplish the mission. And that's huge, whether you're using it in the military or in your home, your relationships, with your kids. I think that's a life skill that people need to learn and hear from you.
Yeah. I traveled around a lot, battlefield circulation, hop in the little C-21 Learjet and go visit the different wings. And you even brought it up, losing sleep over it. People ask, what do you lose sleep over?
Right.
I would never say that I lost sleep. But I would say that my sleep is occasionally challenged or mostly challenged by worthiness. Okay. So we have an obligation to be worthy. I mean, even previous in this discussion, we talked about want the next logical step. It's about worthiness.
Right.
It's about worthiness.
Right.
Am I worthy of the mission that I've been charged with? Am I worthy of the airmen that have been charged to me? Am I worthy of their spouses? Am I worthy of their kids' respect? Am I worthy of that great responsibility? And you should always have a daily gut check on your worthiness. I mean, because this gets after, you should never be satisfied enough or smug or tranquil about how the thing's going, because
especially when you're in charge, like when you're in your position,
you're right.
And one thing that you say could change someone's life, literally,
or end it,
or
horrifically maim it. So worthiness is a real issue, and so when I would travel around to those bases, and I would go with the command chief and the deputy commander and others, and we'd say, you are surrounded by amazing talent. The best sons and daughters of this nation. And you watch them get after mission, and they get it. They understand how their role relates to the mission. They understand the importance of what they're doing to this great nation. And then you come back and you go, am I worthy of that? Am I worthy of the kid that's working 12, 14 hours a day in the heat without the proper equipment? We go back. And so when I came back from these visits, you're like, man, we got to do better.
Yeah.
They're working their tails off. And here's the 18 things that we need to do right now to make that airman's life better so that they can get after mission. And so,
but part of your leadership style was to actually go and give a darn.
Yeah.
Like you actually went and saw boots on the ground and said, how can we improve this?
I think it's, it's important to me. And so the issue is, how can you sustain the pace to keep the tempo up, to have situational awareness of the echelon that you command?
Sure.
So it'd be easy to go visit, one a month.
Right.
And maybe, get to 12 a year and maybe get 36 done. Or can you do 2 or 3 a month? Can you keep the tempo up? And so this, we've alluded to it a little bit, but this is, leadership is about tempo too. I had a great boss, Admiral Phil Davidson, and he said, your leadership, he said, your judgment and your stamina will be tested in 4-star command. And I would argue that judgment and stamina are tested at probably every level of command.
Right.
But for me personally, at the 4-star level, that was a handful. And it's because I want to be worthy. I'll let others judge whether I was or not. But in doing so requires an incredible amount of judgment and an incredible amount of stamina to get after the things, because what you don't want to be is the person in the castle that has no situational awareness of what's really happening on the flight line,
right?
What's really happening on the maintenance line, what's really happening at the guard shacks, what's really happening in all the wonderful people that support fly and fix, to make the mission happen. So worthiness, big deal.
And I think that one-on-one, how I got to experience that when we were at AMC and we had a little booth set up with Soaak Technologies, and we were, talking to you about that.
Yep.
You came in, I think you were in fatigues and, bigger than life, and you stopped and made us feel like we were the only people there. And that was something that not too many people did because, they kind of brushed by, what are you doing, whatever. People that were so further down on the totem pole than you were in terms of ranking, and would like almost not even give you the time of day, but you came by and you cared. And you looked at us in the eyes and said, I'd love to get something going. Love to look at this. I need something that works now, not in a year. You need to do bam, 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 bam. And we were like, okay, did you get that? Okay, did you write that down? Did you? And we delivered. But and thank you for that. But it was that first place that when I looked at you and you looked at me in the eyes, and I felt like I was the only person in there, made a huge impact in our entire company. To tell you the truth.
Thank you. You're very kind.
So, you did it. You did it. It's nothing nothing I can make up because you were there. You did it.
And I think especially for the session that we were there for, and I remembered it was in the Officers Club, and it, I described the tempo earlier when I described Air Mobility Command, and you go from, again, I was not in command when the Kabul evacuation handled, but you think about the effort that the Kabul evacuation handled. You think about the people they saved. You think the people that were left outside the gate that didn't get saved, that they had to overfly and watch, knowing that they weren't, the enormous emotional task. You think about going straight into Ukraine, straight into an exercise, which frankly is voluntary, and I was putting pressure on the team to do.
Wow. Straight
into, support for Israel, which was an incredible surge, and all the other things that are happening, plus the normal stuff, right? And you're watching this team operate at a varsity level, a varsity pace, and I mean, there's nothing on the planet I wouldn't do for them. And so we owe them, this is part of the worthiness, we owe them tools to maximize their performance, maximize their cognitive, maximize their mental, maximize all the things that makes them amazing. And oh, by the way, please have a healthy life and a healthy relationship and healthy kids, healthy spouse, all of that stuff. And I believe that we are underinvesting in that part of what I would call organized training and equipping the force, that there's technology that exists today, there's innovation that exists today that can instantly improve the quality of professional and personal lives in the force, and we need to get after those things.
Right.
So it's an easy event to get juiced for me. Having watched this team in action, understand the tempo that they're under, the pressure that they're under, the bruises of those consecutive operations, and then come into a great crowd like you all that have capabilities that we can use now to make our life better. And the only thing I didn't have was money, and I apologize for that. I apologize for that. So one day I'm going to find the money machine that just cranks out bills. But this is something we have to resource. Yeah. This is absolutely something that we have to resource. And I'm proud to partner with you all to try to make those things come true.
Yeah. No, well, we had such a great time there, and we were so inspired that we kept going. There were a couple of initiatives that we could not do because of budget, like you said, find the money. But there was also a few things that we did do. We completed our second contract with the U.S. Air Force and used some other spaces and places and faces that got that over the finish line. And now we're really looking forward to doing more and having an amazing 26, 27 with everything that we've learned to date and everybody that we've brought on. You and I were talking about that. To really have a team to get those things to the airmen and to the war fighters that they need that will really enhance their lives today with today's technologies.
Yep. Well, I'm a believer. You know that.
Right.
I'm wearing 3 wearables right now. So I've got a watch, a ring, and a strap on. Okay.
Right.
I've also been a consumer of your technology, and I thought one of the coolest things, and probably a pretty amazing compliment, in using the frequencies to sleep, is I asked my Whoop AI, did you notice anything different in the last? And I gave it a range so that it wouldn't know the exact date, and it tied back to the exact date I started using the sleep frequency. It knew on that date that my increase in sleep performance and recovery happened, and that's pretty cool. So that's that's third party. And
I thought that was so cool how you set that up, because you said you knew you were having a conversation with us because we'd reached out to you, and but you didn't want it to be just your opinion.
Right.
You want it to be validated.
Right.
So you told us, you said, I took the last 60 days or whatever. There was a certain day that I started using Soaak sound frequencies for sleep.
Yes.
I didn't tell my Whoop band or AI when that was.
Right.
But you ask it, how's my sleep been over these last, whatever that range was, you gave it 60 days or so. And it pinpointed the exact day you started using Soaak sound frequencies. Yep. And it said your sleep efficiencies went from like a 45, 50% to like a 99% in some cases.
Yep.
And that blew us away. I even asked you to send over your screenshot of that deal, and you did. Yep. And I read it, and we've never published it, but I thought that was such an amazing way that you handled it, because you didn't want to. You may like somebody, but if they don't deliver the goods and something that will actually work, you can't recommend that to people, and especially if you're representing things that are going in to affect the war fighters and the airmen that you don't do that.
You got it. And so the way I describe it is, you want to build a toolkit for people. Okay. I mean, I understand, especially, intense command opportunities for me, where you watch all the things play out. Heavy deployment schedule, no notice deployments, horrific loss, horrific challenges, things like that. And what I want is for individuals to have a toolkit that has a diversity, variety in it of capabilities, and then they pull out what works for them.
Of course.
They pull out.
Everybody's different.
You got it. They pull out. So at the end of the day, I don't care if it's a watch, a ring, or a strap.
Yep.
I care more about the integration and the interface than I care about that. I got to have integration with tools like Soaak Technologies.
Right.
I got to have integration for whatever is out there
right.
That could work for them. Because at the end of the day, what I want the airmen to have is a relationship with technology that carries them through the highs, the lows, and starts at the very beginning of their career and takes them all the way through the end of their career and then beyond into the next right. phase of their life. Because we all know AI especially gets better the more it works with you. The more it right. works with you, the better it gets. And it just gets fine-tuned. And, the worst it'll ever be is today. We already talked about that. The worst it'll ever be is today. Tomorrow's going to be better. And so, this fits neatly in that category. I think it's game changer type stuff. And, my hope is that institutionally, we handle these institutionally, and we do just that. On the day you show up and get your crazy short haircut is also the day you get issued a wearable, and then on the day
Soaak Technologies to integrate it all.
I was going to just say that. And then on the day you get issued your wearable, it's integrated with Soaak Technologies and any others that might be out there to add app style to make your life better. And what I'm looking for is human performance, both physically and cognitively, and lifelong healthiness when it comes to all of that.
Yep, and I think you're the best example, because you've lived through trauma. You've seen other people live through trauma. You've experienced it going into the service and coming out of the service, and you want something that'll really work every day with everyone. Thus your comment about integration. Yep. What I love about what we've been able to do too with Soaak Technologies is we've been able to, you mentioned you're wearing 2 rings and a strap, I think.
Watch, ring, and a strap.
Watch, ring, and a strap. Watch, ring, and a strap. So I see the Whoop, and I see the Oura Ring, and I see the Apple Watch.
Yep.
So of those things, our technology has been able to integrate all of those into one cohesive measurement. So if you're on the Soaak Technologies app, you look down and you can see that maybe it's automatically connected to your Whoop or automatically connected to the Oura Ring or the Apple Watch, and it will give us feedback. It will actually give us feedback on your biometrics to then make a recommendation on which frequency composition you need in the moment.
Right.
We just came out with that this year. So last year, rather. We're in 26 now. But we were so excited to do that because, again, we took your charge way back when. I told you affected us in ways you don't even know you affected us. But we took your charge to take those things, integrate them all into one thing so that you've got the best things that whatever people want to wear, whether they want to watch or strap or whatever it is, that's fine. But can they all integrate into one? And then can we give the warfighter, the Air Force person, the soldier, whatever, can we give that person something that will actually help their lives from the day they enlist to the day they retire?
Love it.
Whether that's retiring in 5 years, 10 years, 35 years, and then can that stay with them after they retire?
I love it. So platform agnostic.
Absolutely, platform
and
agnostic.
focused on integration and interface. I
Yes.
mean, it's beautiful. So I really think that's the way to go. I think this generation is ready for it.
Yeah.
And I think that they're already appreciative of technology. They're already aware of all the data and the things. I think that
They're using it every day anyway.
you got it.
Yeah.
And then you just make it an inherent part. I mean, I realize you got to pay attention to this when you put it on, but that's about it.
Right.
And maybe recharge it every now and again. And then
But it should just work.
And it's helping you every day, and it's effortless.
Yeah.
It's open architecture. It learns you, and it gets better every day. I think that's the way to go.
Yeah.
So I applaud you.
Well, thank you very much. And likewise, thank you for everything you've done for the United States of America, for you, for your family, for your friends, for inspiring us like you did way back when you didn't even know you were inspiring us. And it's really led us on a great path.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I appreciate the thanks, but go hug a spouse and a military kid. That team deserves it more than I ever do. I tease, I just stayed around longer, but the almost 35 years seemed like a blink of an eye. I still feel like a second lieutenant on the inside.
Right.
And it was an honor to do it.
Yeah, that's so awesome. You've so inspired me today. You've got a certain phrase that you always use at the end of all your talks. It's 2 words, and if you know what I'm talking about, if you will look into that camera right now and sign us off with your 2-word phrase, that would be like gold to me.
All right. Well, this phrase came about. It's funny. My first Airlift Tanker Association, I actually got COVID.
Oh no!
And I missed it. And so the first address to my command, big, other than the change of command, it was the month later. I got COVID and couldn't attend.
Right.
And so I wound up, I had this, I had my speech and I worked very hard on it.
Right.
And I wound up giving it virtually. But virtually, I'm literally staring at just a computer. There's no feedback. I'm in St. Louis. The event's happening. I can't remember if it was Colorado or wherever, but it was happening elsewhere. And I mean, you're giving a speech for whatever 30 or 40 minutes with no feedback, and I'm someone that thrives on feedback.
Yeah, you play off the audience.
I mean, if I'm going to cry, I want to see you crying. If I'm going to laugh, I want to see you laughing. I want to see the expressions.
100%.
I want to see who's not paying attention and texting and all that
100%.
stuff. And I feed off of that.
Yeah.
And so it's a very uncomfortable thing. But in preparing for that speech, I wanted 2 words that signified, without saying anything more, that you understood the mission. You understood your position. You understood your responsibilities. You understood who you were enabling and who you were enabled by.
Nice.
that you respected each other,
Right.
that you were dedicated to each other. You understood that you're part of a team, and whose purposes was much bigger than any individual purpose that could exist. And the words I came up with were "let's go."
Right.
Just say, "Hey, let's go, man." I mean, we're going. I realize it's scary. I realize we're tired. I realize there's more priorities than we can handle.
Right.
I realize the unit doesn't have enough people. I realize the unit doesn't have enough money. I realize the unit doesn't have enough time. But the nation is calling. So what are we going to do? Let's
go. Oh, yes.
Thank you for sharing your time with us today. After you've subscribed at Soak Podcast, please leave us your questions and comments. Remember, your frequency is what you think about most frequently. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.